Hi, everyone. My name is Daniel, and welcome to our podcast, which is titled Ignite Entrepreneurs. As you know, this podcast is for coming from Black business owners in Kamloops, and it is all about sharing their experience so that upcoming business people, Black business people in Kamloops, can learn from that and make more money, create more business, and employ more people. Today, we have with us somebody I really respect. I see her as a legend, a queen and queen mother. Her name is Shirley Palmer-Hunt. Shirley, you're welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you.
Shirley, how did it all start? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I was born in Jamaica, in the Caribbean, and I emigrated with my parents to the United Kingdom when I was 10. And then me and my husband, we came to Canada in my 40s, really. And so we've been here for nearly 20 years now. So when I came from the United Kingdom, I was what they call a government worker, a civil servant. So in England, I was in a position where there was 8 of us in the whole country. So I served the regional, they call it regional development worker, in the office of the Deputy Prime Minister in the region of Yorkshire and Humber. Yeah, so it was a high position, a lot of responsibility, but also a lot of humility, because you serve a lot of people. When I came to Canada.
You've been in executive positions for almost all your life.
Oh, yeah.
How has it been in those positions, knowing that we're Black people in a white environment, and being a lady? How has it been? What's the experience?
Well, if we're specific to as a child from England, working through the ranks, very progressive, but also you have to be very learned. You've got to have a thirst for education. You've got to want to be educated, not only academically, because I'm academically educated, but also educate yourself about other people, other people's culture. You know, you've got to understand the soft. You've got to understand the hard. You've got to understand poverty. You've got to understand people who are affluent. You've got to make good representation for people from all communities, is what I found. So I think with that in mind, I've developed through that ranks, because I have that sensibility, is the word really, to the local people, as I have an understanding of being amongst civil servants. So I've always got on. I mean, I'm a woman of color, so I'm not, diminishing that, because I think that has been, that's a central part of me. That's spectacular that I bring this color to the whole process. I bring that background, I bring that knowledge, but I bring me, and there's every part of me, the fact that I'm from the African diaspora, because I'm not African as people would see it now, but I am from the African diaspora, because we were dispersed and taken away from Africa. So I was brought up in the West Indian, in the Caribbean, which has its own history. It's a very rich history. So I've never been ashamed of that, but I don't wear that as my main thing. I am essentially me and everything else that comes with me. So I think that is very powerful. So I think if you walk in that, you get on really well. So in the United Kingdom, I got on really well. I went through the ranks very quickly, through local government, then they call it municipal government here, then regional government is where I sat. Then in that, I went to what Canadians call federal government, where in England that's called central government, at the centre of government in London, interfacing with the regions of the country, the 8 regions of the country. So that is where I developed. And I think when I came to Canada, Canada is a different experience, okay? So for immigrants who see me as a woman of color, a black woman in the business community, it's important to understand where we come from. So in Canada, when I arrived, before I arrived, I made contact with the Canadian government, and said, "Oh, come along, oh, you're welcome. Please come to Victoria, the head of government in BC, for an interview for a job." But and it was good when I arrived for this really high-ranking job. But then I was told, we didn't expect the woman who we spoke to on the telephone to be you. And that is, for some black people, that's quite an alarming thing. For me, it wasn't alarming as it was shown a backwardness of understanding. But also for me, it was a clear thing, was this is a racism that you can actually see. It reveals itself. It's not hidden. It's not coercive. It's fantastic for me because I know exactly what I'm dealing with. So, okay, fair enough. So that was my journey in Canada, was very much when I first came. It's like, oh God, you speak like the Queen of England, and oh dear. So for me that was interesting. But it was also very discouraging. So I think it's important when people listen to this podcast that they understand that just because someone has been discouraged does not mean that we don't rise and then we don't fulfill the potential that God, the Maker, has for us. But you have to look on that racism in its face. You cannot linger. You cannot labor it. So you've got to be careful about what people say to you and what you take from that and how you then define yourself. So I didn't really talk about that outside. I talked to my husband, I knew. But then my husband used to say to me, "Shirley, you need to do something like immigration." I said, "Why are you saying that?" He said, "Well, you love reading, you like law." And he said, you like exams. No one likes exams. But you like exams, and you've got to pass at 80 or 90 or it's not. He said, "And you like people. And you have a really strong sense of justice." He said, "Have you thought about immigration? Because you did all the papers for us when we came to Canada." I was like, "Oh, I'm not interested in that." It's ridiculous. So, but then I started to do, in Canada, I started my own business. So I've been in Canada, I've been in business about 18 years, 18 and a half, and up to 19 years in Canada, because I became an entrepreneur straight away. So I did the business consulting when I first came to Canada, in that world. So then I wasn't at anyone else's table. I had to make my own table, which was good because that was based on where I came from in the United Kingdom, the writing of policy, the writing of putting things in context. And so that's where in the corporate world in Canada, was the only world really was where I dealt as a consultant on my own business.
Also sounds like you have a lot of strengths from when you were growing up, maybe within the family. I know it's a little bit aside, but most times when we get inspired, where we get our spine, our strength from is always from a significant other, maybe a father, a mother. Would you say the family, as you were growing up, were there things within the family that inspired you, that built you up to take on the world? Was there things that were said to you by parents? Is it important for people to take note of how they inspire their kids moving forward? Were there strengths that you got from family?
Yeah, I'm very fortunate as I speak to say that I was brought up first in the Caribbean by my grandmother. That was the norm in those days, that your parents went abroad and they left you with their grandparents. So I was left with a grandmother, who's a praying woman, a very much praying woman. And so every night she'd sing, and she'd sing the scriptures, really. And we didn't have any books or anything like that. We had a Bible. So all the books that we had at school that we had to take back. So my grandmother was a woman of God in the real sense. At the end of the day with prayer, she said, "Oh, pray." And then she'd say, if I was frightened, she'd say, "Oh, sing this Psalms." So she'd sing that Psalms. So in me was that thing from my grandmother. And then my dad was a minister in the black church. But my dad was very much about, go and read that scripture for yourself and find out what he says in that word. So we were very encouraged to go to that word, read it, and then decide, or pray about it, decide. So fortunate for me, my mother's people, very strong people, and they're hard-working people. People call themselves subsistence farmers now, right? You farm, and from your farming, you eat.
You eat.
Right. So that's the subsistence farming. And then my grandmother would make everything that my grandmother did. All our clothes was made. So I think it's not just always what they spoke to us, was how they lived. Even though they lived very humbly, they were always very clean. Everyone always sat around in a circle on the ground to eat the food. Yes, we did. And we would eat off plates, but we'd be sat around on the floor, all of us, right? And our food would be cooked under the ground, if necessary, the big mortars, and the small little shack or something where they'd pound and they'd cook and they'd, and sing. Yeah. Sing was very important.
A community.
Community, yeah. And we, would plait hair. I mean, plait my hair. My auntie plaited my hair. My cousin plaited my hair. So the plaiting of the hair was a community thing. Would put your head down, put the oil in the pot, plait our hair. And also, there'd always be someone singing. Singing was really important. So as a black woman now, I find I sing a lot. Or we call it Maya Angelou call it the Everyone has a So that's why I, as a woman of color, I'm Caribbean, I'm very, very careful to acknowledge my African heritage, because that comes from there. That hum, that singing, that being confident in yourself. And that's why you will see me as a natural, like my makeup and stuff like that, but you won't find my hair covered with a wig and stuff like that, all these things, because I don't come from that. I come from women who are strong in themselves. We're not shamed. We're very strong. And that is what comes out in the business community as well. It does, because if you're ashamed of yourself and you're making excuses about yourself and, that all the things that we'll talk about in a minute about being in business, it comes from that, because business comes from yourself.
Exactly.
A businesswoman can be a woman who's very quiet and hardly says a word. That is a persona. But when you deal with her, a business is strong, or a business money, it's not always about a personality. It's the business also is an intrinsic part of who you are. You bring who you are to the table, So I think our history and our community shouldn't be diminished. But, we are standing on the shoulders of our grandmothers who did sing and washing and doing that. Because you don't know what's going on, but she's still going to. But I know my grandmother, sometimes you start the day, there's been no food, and she'd be, but by the end of the day, and she'd sing the Rock of Ages cleft for me, but end of the day, all of us would sit around with a full plate and full belly, and we give God thanks. So we have learned that, and I think we bring that into the community of business. We have a lot to offer.
How did you get into, because I remember you said your husband mentioned a few things you could do. You love reading, you love this. Those are virtues, those are qualities. But how did you finally put your foot down and say, this is what I wanted to do?
Well, it was a journey, and I think all entrepreneurs will understand that entrepreneurship is a journey, because when I had this thing about, you can't be in Canada on those high positions, I had to actually accept it, because those people in those positions in Canada, in those high positions, had come through a rank like I'd come through in England. And then I was told when I went to see about funding, Canadian taxes cannot be used to give to immigrants to start business. It's for Canadians. That's what was the law then. I don't know if it's changing now, but that's what it was told. So any money that we have to put that into a business for myself or my husband. So then my husband went to this thing. He found something in the papers. He said, "Oh, there's something about a home show for people who have home-based business." And I went. It was the 14th of February, 2005, I think it was. And I went, and then I realized that, you have to open a business. I went to the Chamber of Commerce, got to open a business, give the business a business name, go into the province, show thing to see that no one else has your name, and you put that name. To open the business by registering the province first of BC, because if you're going to pay taxes, then you must make sure that, you've got a business name that can be aligned to your taxes. And then from that, I was told, you don't register for GST yet. You register business name, and when you get to 35,000, I think it was in Canada then, that's when the GST begins to be taken. But you have to register the business name with the province. So then I decided, what do I register the business name? And we thought, well, if we use the British terminology, we use consultancy, where in North America they say consulting. Okay. So then I used my name, and then I registered the business, then went to the city of Kamloops, registered the business name, got the business name, and I worked from home. And I had a young child who was only 9 when we came to Canada. So then I'd see him after school, check in, make sure he's at school, then I would start my business day. And then it was business consulting primarily and research projects. So one of the things I did a lot of networking. I went to nearly every networking meeting that was possible to be networked. I went early morning network meeting, late evening network meeting, one at South Thompson Inn, or some everywhere there's networking I went. Because I then did business cards, like 500 business cards, and everywhere I go I hand out my business card. And then, so that's how I actually got my foot in the ground. And then I began to look online to see where could business consulting needs be. This love of reading, this research, this people thing, where am I going to find that? So I used to do a lot of looking online, researching to do RFPs, they call it in Canada, don't they, RFPs? And I wrote loads of RFPs, sat on the floor, back to the sofa, loads of RSPs, why I can do this type of research for housing, and then the people who really got me going was through my networking meetings. I went through to Elizabeth Fry Society. I used to go to a lot of their stuff. And then they did a request for RFPs for doing work with women, vulnerable women. And that was it for me. And they chose me and youth as well, and housing and all that. So that's when I really used those skills, was in those requests for RFPs, yeah.
Would you say the business you chose is a function of your career experience, or a function of, or an addition of the values that you had or skills? Because I know most people will think about, there are like 200 businesses I can do. How do I choose one? Is it what I know how to do, or what I love to do, or what sells more?
That's one of the things I had down. I think the big thing about business is I think, what are the 5 things that I would want people to take away from this podcast? And you're talking them through, so that's really good. And I think one of the things is, I thought, is a vision. The other thing I got is make your own table. The other thing I have a talk to yourself. The other thing is set monetary goals. And the other thing is know your worth. So when someone will say, well, I don't have a vision, I don't understand it. Well, I think that makes me panic. When I think, if someone says to me, your vision, it could make you panic. So from my own experience, I think you flourish where there's a passion. and there's a talent, but also open yourself up to the fact that you might have talents that you can't even see yet, because you have hidden talents and you have other talents that people can see. Yeah, and sometimes you can't even see that talent. So the business that I believe that you flourish at best is where something is in you. It's there. So this is your talent, your natural God-given talent, and then there's also the passion, and there's also the things that you follow after because you're interested, and there's also, do people need what I have? If people aren't coming back over and over again for what I have, that's when you start talking about your goals and all that, which is a different point. But I think that for me, I flourish where it's about words. If there's a sense of social injustice, I'm on it. Yeah. So it's for you, for the person entrepreneur out there, it might be their art, it might be their singing voice, it might be the fact that they can sew, but you flourish. And one of the things that I did years ago for a man who's now been in Canada a long time, he came to my office and he had that many certificates. And he loved them. I said, whoa, that's a lot of certificates. I said, where do we go with this? And he said, oh, I've done. And he loved it. He gloried in them all. There was about 16, 17 on them. Like, got to choose 2 or 1. And then I said to him, and he's done so many trades. I said to him, let me know. I said, here's the thing. Which of these trades would you be doing so long in the night that your wife would be saying, come back in the house and eat your dinner? Because you're good at so many things. He said, it's anything to do with big engines, and bigger the thing, the better. I said, you need to be a heavy-duty mechanic at the... Oh, no, he said, oh, no, he said, I'm fainting at the thought of it. So I said, so this is what you need to... He loves it. That's your passion. You need to be a heavy equipment mechanic.
Sometimes those things get scary. Those like, oh, you could do this. I'm like, oh, why does it happen? Like, it's like, it's my passion. I can talk about it, but how about you stop?
You make me scared like this.
Why?
I don't know what it is. And I think this is when we have to learn as human beings to be still. Because when my husband said, Lisa, oh, forget it, ridiculous. But I'm doing now today, I'm flourishing in what I said, forget it, it's ridiculous. So I think it's really important, like that man, he's so talented, he's got so many things, and it's his biggest earner yet. And he said, he had to come and find me to thank me. He said, I thank you, he said, for pulling me and directing me towards something that I'm so passionate about. And my wife would have to say, come in, to eat your dinner, it's time. And now he's doing that.
So it has to do with listening as well. Being still is also part of listening to people, listening to oneself.
Listening to yourself, being still in your own self. And that's the whole thing about the whole idea of having a vision. And not panic when someone says there's a vision, because all you need to do is get some old magazines or look at the things that make you passionate, put them on you buy a cheap little notice board and tack them on it. That's really a vision. It's a visual vision, right? But sometimes because we're visionaries, all of us are visionaries, it's easier for us to write it down or for us to pin it on a board and put it somewhere where it's private to us, where you can see it. Even if you only see it once a week, you can actually see it, right? So that's the clarity in an entrepreneur. For me, it's the writing it down. For me, it's the physical. Because in my office, you'll see the vision board. That's my vision board for my company, for everyone who works with me.
What is vision? Is vision what you want to achieve for yourself or what you want the clients to achieve for them?
It's yeah. In an entrepreneur, that's a very good point, because as an entrepreneur, you have two visions going all the time. You have your vision going, and you have your client's vision at the same time. And your best avatar, I call it, the best avatar of a best client is where your vision and theirs are linked. You can have not a better client, right?
So I want to sell ice cream. They want to eat good ice cream, so that we're helping each other out.
Yeah, it's a connection. Like if a woman who does dressmaking, she loves only the beautiful African prints that you buy, the Dutch cloth. If you give her a cream piece of cloth to make a dress, she's fast asleep, basically. It's like her husband come home, her kids come home, she's deep asleep. It's like that cloth has just done nothing for her. But leave her alone, and she is that person, that woman or that man, standing their own confident and saying, oh God, I'm going to get myself a few yards of that, and I'm going to make myself some garments. I can see children in it. I can see men in it. And again, she does that thing. Tina Turner calls it the hum. Oh, she's remembered to cook the dinner. She's done everything because she's given a piece of cloth that ignites her. And then I'm looking for a piece of garment for my child. I can't sew, but I'm looking for a nice 8-year-old. He's this tall, we're going to a function. She's got it. Then my vision and hers has come together. So bit by bit, as she's making, as an entrepreneur, she's aligning with a client who is her perfect avatar, right? So I call that make your own table. Oh, cream dresses doesn't work. Does work for many, many people, but amongst the African Caribbean community, and people say, well, it's stereotypical. Well, it's not really. It's not stereotypical at all. It's this love of vibrant colors, because the vibrant colors matches our skin, and in that vibrancy is something going on for us, right? We're dressed Western, but if we're going to a wedding or an event, we are looking to dress our children in the more traditional stuff. So, and some days we do like the cream, but we do put on the stuff, or we do wrap our heads. It's a part of who we are. So that entrepreneur, she's already there. And because her scope isn't just about that, the more she does that, she finds out about events. She finds out about her art. She finds out about community stuff. So she begins to broaden her network, right? So that is the vision. Is not only our vision, it's our clients, and you amalgamate the two, and it's a perfect avatar, and that's what people call business, really.
Business, yeah. You did say that when you start, you discover other strengths you have that you never knew you had before. That's very important. After making your table, after the vision, what next for the entrepreneur?
Well, I think you make your own table, you sit at your own table, and I'll say that again because often in the African Caribbean society, community or people of color, we sometimes, not all of us, we dwell on what people think about us. They're not going to do business with us because I'm black. Have you seen how black I am? Really? Well, you know what? I think everyone does see the color that you are, but we get so focused on that. We forget. And no one's going to come to the table. Well, I think to myself, yeah, that's for sure. No one's coming to your table. So you've got to make the table. When you make the table, you decide who you want at the table.
Carve your own audience, carve your niche, and focus, dedication, consistency.
You need to take that quiet time away from the crowd in your dining room, in your bedroom, get a piece of paper or however you like to make notes on your laptop, or, put pieces of cloth out and make things. But that's your table. And you decide who's going to be at this table. Who do I want at this table? who's my perfect client? And I went to a big, massive seminar in Las Vegas that helped me understand about, I have to set that table and I have to decide who's going to come to that table. And this million is called a $1 million consultant. And he said, stop writing RFPs. I was thinking, oh, he's telling me to cut my hand off. He said, stop it. He said, you need to build relationship with people who are going to, he said, after all those RSPs, you're not going to get them anyway. He said, because you need to have relationships. He said, business is about relationships. I was thinking, oh my God, oh dear, my God, what am I going to do? What is this man saying? And then he decided, he said, this whole idea that came to me then is that you set your table. You decide who's going to be at that table. But it's an exercise that you have to spend some time doing. It's good to have conversations, but it's about that alone time, what you do that alone time, how you spend that time. Who needs to be at my table? Well, I want RFPs, but I've got to find a society who does those RFPs, who, like that society that gave me the RFPs. And every time they have an RFP, they seem to find me, right? So it's like, who's going to be at the table? So I have people who contact my business and say, Shirley, I want you to bring me 15 foreign, I've got space for 50 foreign workers, and I want you to be the consultant that does that for me. And I'm giving it all. I'm giving the glory march. I'm doing my hallelujah. And then 2 weeks later, I don't have a deal. The big deal isn't closed. So this podcast is also about supporting entrepreneurs to understand that journey sometimes. So if you don't know and define who's going to be at the table, anybody can come down at the table, sit down, eat your food, make you feel good, and walk away, and you don't get nothing from it. So that taught me that whole thing of who begin to build more, not who's at the table. So at the table, I want business people who have the ability to pay their bills, business people who have a clear goal of what my services are and what they mean to them, business people who within 5 days will give me a confirmation about that deal. So it doesn't matter which type of entrepreneur you are, you still have at the table people who have the ability to make decisions and also the ability to follow through. And you can starve to death on people's and you're gonna be the one. I've just bought this brand new business, Shirley, and you're gonna be the one who's gonna deliver this for me. I'm still gonna.
Until
6 months later. So you have to learn yourself to say, you know what? This is done. You've had your 5 days or 2 weeks, and this is done. I'm not saying that you can't come back again, but come back again because at this point, I have this opportunity that I'm seeing to. You may not have an opportunity, but you may want to have a good book that you might want to read for 2 weeks. But you're setting that respect for yourself. That's the table.
That's part of the table.
And who do I want at the table? I want, for the year, I'm setting my business goal. Do I want about 700,000 Canadian at the end of this year? That's my goal. So at the table, you should have opportunities and things that will bring you 500,000 or 700,000 Canadian for the year. And I want 200. I'm going to be getting 250,000 a year. It's really good, but have you sat down? Who's at that table? What are you doing to make that happen?
Yeah.
And that's the me. That's not in the front of the public time for an entrepreneur. You also need your me time where you're sitting down and you
reflection.
Does that mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reflection.
Yeah. That's a good thing. Who's at the table?
After the table is formed, the vision starts. Then you create your table. You choose who's at the table, who you keep at the table. What's next?
Well, I think the next thing is every goal or every vision has got to have the goals the very practical things that you need to achieve them.
The milestones.
Yeah, what are the tasks that I'm going to do to achieve this? So for example, I do immigration, so my perfect avatar is to have a business that's going to bring in, I'm going to bring in on their behalf 30 workers in that business into Canada. And 30, I can say, not I'm thinking about it, but 30 actual people. How much money does that generate for me? That's a part of my thing. So it's not like talking all the time. You're going to have a clear thing. 30 workers for that business. Or how much? What does that mean for me monetarily?
Making it practical, not
It's
just dreaming.
practical. Yeah, you've got to say, I'm gonna out of 30, I'm gonna have times. For example, in Canada, if you're a placement agencies in Canada, and I think most of the world, developed world, you charge 15% of the year's wage. If you place a person that earns 62,000 a year, you own 10% of that wage, right? That's yours, 15%. But you may say, I'll do 10% because in this market, I may not get 15, okay? But if you bring to your table business people and they say, oh, I've changed 15%, I've changed my mind, I can't do that. Yeah, you say, well, can you do 10%? Could you do 9%? But when it's a pushing and pushing and pushing that you do 6%, it's really a diminution of yourself. So you have to say, God, having done all to stand, I'm going to stand. Right? I'm going to stand. This is, if it's 15% the rate, and I'm saying 10%, you've got to have the ability to deliver what you say you're going to deliver. But if people are diminishing you, and you keep saying yes, 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 till you're back to the wall, your value is diminished to literally nothing. And then the people who are giving you this deal, so-called deal, at this lower, they're expecting you to deliver as if they were paying you 15%.
True.
So if you don't take anything away as an entrepreneur, you take away that. Yes, you've got to build to the market, but you've got to be careful, especially as a person of color also. Well, it's a lot.
That's thinking less of oneself. Yeah.
And when you do the research, you find out they've paid so-and-so 11,000 to do a third of what you've done. So you've just always got to be confident that you know what you're doing and you know your value. And you're talking about people of color being entrepreneurs. You know, this is focused at people of color to encourage you to listen and to write down and to reiterate. You know, we all look at Beyonce flinging herself and doing her thing. But if you take all of that back, she's a businesswoman. She's an entrepreneur. She dances and she flounces, but in her quiet time, she's setting her table. You know, she's made a decision about who dances for her. She's made that decision. And if you don't fit that, you're not dancing for her. So I think when you set that table, you write the vision down, but it must be leads to strategy. We have that history of Black people have been taken down to the lowest denominator. So us in this generation, we shouldn't be bullish, but we also should stand confident and say, no, this is my deal. I'll do that deal, but this is this is what I stand. Oh, but look at you, you're only little, and you need it. No, that's what you see. What you see is not what I see.
You see a little person.
I see a tall woman. I see a woman who has strength. I see a woman who has abilities. I see a woman who can negotiate. I see a woman who can bring in.
It's all about self-concept.
It's just, you have to stand strong. So it's not, yes, we talk, we pontificate, but at the back of that's got to be clear structure. And so what I do in my business, and I got my deal at the level that I want. So, I'm going to And I said, oh, I can take that. Oh, no, he said, Shirley, if you need 17,000 out my credit card, just take the 17,000 whatever you need. But before you get to that point, you have to stand strong. And the Bible said, having done all to stand, stand.
Yeah.
And sometimes you will not get that deal because you stand. But that is how it is. This is fair. This is if you open up a shop, if you're making clothes, if you're fixing bikes, whatever your trade is or your stance in business, you must know what the market value is, and you must know what you're capable of, and start where you're capable of, and do bit by bit by bit by bit. You may have another job while you develop your entrepreneurship, okay? But you must set that stall out, because everything goes wrong, people expect the value to be this high. Right? So you must remember always that even people that push you down, when something is not the right way, they expect you to come back up to 200%. So that's a very important thing for entrepreneur, that we set that stall, we make that structure. We have that structure. If you have a structure, you can go back to it over and over again. That's the other thing, right? So, I can say, oh, I've done one of those before. Oh, how much did I do for that? Okay. And so, oh, I didn't know if I could. Well, the thing is, I'm a legal practice. I'm the same as any large legal practice in Kamloops. So if you can't do at my level and what I do, there's it opens. It's called a door. You open it, and you go out of it. That's and you close it behind yourself. So as a Black person in this community, we must do our work to the highest level, but we must also stand good pricing. We must not get ourselves bartered down. And this thing of bartering with people, bartering in the West is not necessarily a good thing. It often equates with diminishing. So I think when you set the goal, your vision, you write your strategies, you implement them. And so people say, well, it's a lot of talk, what happens next? Well, what I do in my business is I have an exercise book, and I mark it out for what my weekly, I set my weekly money goal.
Yeah, that's the next point.
Yeah, I set the weekly money goal, because you say, well, have you got this? I've been in business a long time, and that's why I'm hopefully people listening will accept this, because it came about from a journey. So I set my money goal that this is how much I'm going to earn per week, and then I write the scripture or whatever word that I write the same thing every week. But you must try and set enormous, audacious goals. Not goals that are ridiculous, but they must be audacious to some extent. That is beyond what you would expect of yourself a little. Because sometimes we don't push ourselves, we diminish ourselves. We don't need people to diminish us, because we spend so much time diminishing ourselves. So you set that goal, and then you look back and you say, oh my gosh, I've set that goal for myself. Well, your accountant probably think, oh, she's stupid. Oh, setting goals like that for herself. It's not, but it's not that person's goal. It's your goal that you're setting for yourself. Yeah.
Shirley, it's like I've been to school.
Oh, really?
Listening to you.
Yeah.
There's so much you've said. Funny enough, these are some of the things you've said are things we've heard. But the way it came across, it sounds fresh. You make it sound fresh. You make it sound really practical. And I think that's what we need, because a lot of people come to Kamloops or even, go to countries that are not their home, and they have skills from home. But then how do they domesticate it? Where do I start from? Do I just join in and do what everybody does? Or do I build on my vision? Do I think about my family, my future? So thank you so much.
Oh, it's a pleasure, yeah.
Thank you so much. I hope the viewers at home watching this podcast have learned a lot from this, and I hope you will give your business a lot of thought. Remember, have your vision, set your table, choose who's going to be at the table, work on it, be strong, have a lot of pride, be confident. Don't look down on yourself. Don't say, maybe because they're this, they can do $2 million, I'll just do $50. build yourself up to that level. Deliver what you can, promise what you can deliver. Don't lie and say, oh yeah, I can do everything. And then you deliver short and then they look down. And then it spoils, I think it spoils the pathway for other people.
And the way that we grow in the West in business is really important for people coming from Africa and other countries, is to understand in the West, the bartering is not strong. And it's seen as diminishing most of the time. It can be, it's okay to some extent. But I think when you go to that African or Caribbean entrepreneur, you should go with a different way of speaking. You should say, I know that you've got the good reputation, Mr. So-and-so, Mrs. So-and-so, for doing this, and you charge a little bit more than people expect, but I've put my money aside and I've saved my money aside to pay you what you deserve for your work and what you're worth.
True.
That is a different way of presenting and approaching it, because how it leaves that person feeling and the energy they then have in what they're doing for you. But we are bin traders. African, Caribbean people, we are one of the oldest traders written down even biblically. The Queen of Sheba, which was from Ethiopia or from Yemen. So she was an African woman. We do have that within us, and I think it's important to remember that.
Thank you so much, Shirley.
Yeah.
Thank you for sticking with us. Join us for another episode next time.
Yes.
But I want to say a big thank you to Shirley Palmer-Hunt for this. This is for the next, I don't know how many generations. This is going to be a golden resource for everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for watching.